It's recording.
Ah,
So somehow I
okay.
must still have, even though I've given you control of the screen, somehow I must still have some kind of a.
Okay. Well, this is good. We have co-control. I like that.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you if there's anything I missed. At the end of the PowerPoint, we do welcome, I think we've left everybody unmuted. Feel free to raise your hand or in the chat box or just go ahead and chime
Jump
in.
right in.
Question.
Hmm.
We At the end, I will share the screenshot of the upcoming webinars so that you see what's coming next month. But go ahead, Liz. I'll let you take
All
over.
right. Great, Nancy. I appreciate it. And hi, Aaron. Hi, John or Beth and or Beth. Um, I know all of you pretty well. I don't know everybody's wildlife viewing abilities or experiences, so I wasn't sure what my audience was going to be tonight, so I sort of started with some basic stuff and some disturbance issues. But hopefully I'll have some things in here that will be new for you. And maybe you can, since we have such a small group, maybe we can open it up and share things as we go along. So I'm going to start. All right. Does everybody see that slide? We had a little technical difficulties earlier. Is that everybody good?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. All right. So if you're starting out, maybe you're just a rank beginner and you really don't know what's in Florida. Maybe you just moved here or you just really haven't gotten into wildlife viewing much. So it's a good idea to start getting online and getting yourself educated as much as you can before you head to the field. Maybe you got a species in mind, but you really don't know enough about where to go find it or what season it's active or time of day or anything like that. So it's good to get informed as much as you can before you head out. And typically, dawn and dusk are the most active times for animals, and also preferable time for photography. You get the better golden light, and also if it's in the summer, it's not quite as hot. So there's a lot of good reasons to be up early and out at sunset. So if you keep going back to the same site that you found or this may be near you that's convenient, it's interesting. You can kind of track it in a journal or a Flickr or whatever and start becoming observant and realize what the cycles are of the season and how the animals are influenced and what animals stay and what animals migrate. So some of the basics, this is probably not news to everybody, but one of the biggest things we try to stress is to give wildlife a distance and to use your scope or your zoom lens, your oops. Okay, let's see. Let me try that again. Okay, hang on a second. We're having a little technical things here. We had to get creative to make this all work. Okay, so definitely the big news is always try to stay at least a football length away from the critters that you're observing. And of course, this is difficult if you're paddling on a river or along the coast. And you just do the best you can to stay as far away from the animals as you can within the space that you may be confined in. And if I'm leading paddlers down a river and I see turtles up on the log, I'll just challenge them and say, hey, let's see if we can go by so quietly that we keep those turtles up on the log. And everybody just like don't look at them directly, look at them obliquely, stop moving your paddles when you go by, stop talking. Let's just see if we can make it a game and challenge them to try to keep them on the log. So in general, when you're around animals, besides keeping your distance, you want to be really quiet and still and avoid talking if you have to. And if you flush the bird or you spook the animal and they go away, that was your test and you failed it and you got too close. And one of the big things is not taking dogs out into the wilderness, or be sure you keep them on a tight leash if you do. So a few more points here. So your goal is, like I said, with the turtle exercise on paddling on the rivers, try to see it without it seeing you. And don't stay longer than 10 minutes as a rule. So your presence, even if you're really minimal and you're hidden well, you still are affecting the animal's behavior. So you definitely don't want to surround it, corner, or harass it. And if you're in a car and birding, like in a large refuge or somewhere, just stay in your car because the birds are pretty used to that, and it sort of hides your presence. You're not a walking, standing human. And definitely don't slam the car door because that can just sort of ruin the morning for everybody. Absolutely never feed wildlife ever. Just really no excuses for that. If you see other people doing it, feeding manatee or giving them water or feeding dolphin or any of that, just politely point out to them this is really, really not in the animal's best interest, and that it could result in citation by FWC, because those are illegal activities. And of course, you never want to touch or capture wildlife. And if you see what looks like an abandoned young, like a fawn or some small mammal, our propensity is to go ahead and rescue it, but we really just need to move away and let go of the opportunity, and just realize that the parent is probably close by and just is waiting for you to get out of the way so it can go in and get back with your young. So back to that part about learning about wildlife, the Fish and Wildlife Commission's doing a brand new website. These are the old pages. We just spent the past month moving all the content over, so as we're speaking, it's being uploaded. If you come back and look at this in a month, you'll see a brand new website. But it's, regardless if you look at it tonight or look at it in a month, it is a really good resource. There's endless links, and you can kind of stay up there forever, learning about whatever your target species are that you want to know. So it's a really good way to get a lot of information.
Hey,
and this is an interesting. I
had a quick question. So we have lots of journalists come in, and I've been hosting lots of them lately, and I hear so many mixed messages about protected species or endangered species. You know, is there any comprehensive list of those species, like endangered species by county or protected species by location, so that we can accurately speak to it from our region? Because, for instance, they're calling gopher tortoises endangered, which I don't think is accurate. I think they're threatened in Lee County anyway, or statewide. I don't know. They're calling manatee endangered. They've been delisted, correct?
No, they're still listed. But what I can do is send you a link to that we can share with everybody.
By county, though?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think I can find that out for you.
That would be good. I was at the Federal Wildlife Refuge, and I thought, well, I'm not sure.
It gets super confusing because there's federal listing, there's state listing. It's not confusing.
Okay. Okay, I got it. Thanks.
Yeah, we can share that with everybody. That would be good. So this is a good way to kind of get savvy as to what's happening right now. So we've got a wildlife through the year with all these hyperlinks on it. It is for the whole state, which of course is a little different from north to south with the peninsular effect. But this is a really good resource. I like to look at this a lot, just kind of remind myself of what's coming, what to be looking out for.
This is fantastic for using on social.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's going to look so much better when the new website comes up. It's going to be really much more user friendly and intuitive. So we're excited about we have a lot better graphics and photos and everything. So we'll talk about birds and butterflies both. I think watching butterflies is great. It's easier than watching birds in a lot of ways. You can get a lot closer to them. They're slackers. They don't really get up until 10 o'clock or so, 9 or 10 o'clock. So if you don't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go out and join the other bird nerds and then be looking super early, if you want to get a good look at them, you want to have a low angle, so you kind of crouch down and you can get fairly close and not disturb them if you come from below or get kind of eye level. If you're standing up and you move abruptly, or your shadow crosses on top of them, that will spook them because they think there's possibly a predator. We have 187 species of butterflies in Florida, and the Big Bend Wildlife Management Area up here, southeast of Tallahassee, has 100 species, which is the most concentrated diversity in the state. So if you ever feel like really getting a great eye full of butterflies in the summer and fall, it's a tremendous place. It's managed for wildflowers specifically, and that helps with attracting the butterflies. Another great resource is the McGuire Center at the Florida Museum of Natural History in Gainesville. It's right off of 75. It's just a tremendous place to go. I think it's $1 million structure that's kind of like going through a rainforest, and they have waterfalls and it's not huge, but it's beautifully done. There's lots of tropical foliage and incredible butterflies. It's the largest collection of butterflies in the world. They have 3 stories. And I was there recently for a meeting and got to go behind the screen and saw these insulated containers coming from Belize with Spanish invoices that they were setting up to go into the center. So it's really fantastic. Another thing, we offer Wings Over Florida program through the Great Florida Birding trail. We have them both for butterflies and for birds. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is probably the best place to go to get your birding game on. It's very interactive and intuitive. You can kind of plan a trip anywhere around the state. You can sort of take it from viewing 101, learning how to use optics and scopes, and you can get dialed in on the butterflies, on birds, on the Wings Over Florida program. Some of the ways to increase your experience is to go out with others that know a lot more than you. There's a lot of bird tours. The Audubon Society is a great place to join. There's 44 chapters around the state and visitor centers. There's a lot of events sponsored by them. Birding festivals are a really good way. Typically, the guided field trips are pretty cheap. And there's an explosion of smartphone apps that help you in the field. So going beyond your usual field guides, eBird is tremendous. You can get the hot spots, species range, seasonal sightings out of that. The Audubon birding app, iBird Ultimate. The iNaturalist I'm going to talk about more in a second. That's an app that Android or iPhones can use, and the agency is really embracing it and trying to promote this as much as we can to have everybody come a citizen scientist and help us gather species information. So signing up for listservs and Meetup and Facebook groups, there's just so much social media and so many online resources. It's really exciting. The Wings Over Florida program, when you get on the birding trail site, you can download the birding checklist and the butterfly checklist. And then there are different levels of certification, starting with as few as 10 butterflies and going on up. So you can have your own big year. It's a great way to get, if you like to collect certificates and feel rewarded, that's a really good way to do it. This is the iNaturalist that I mentioned. It's managed by the California Academy of Sciences. And this is linked to the Florida nature trackers that we've set up. So we have all these projects around the state based on species and also on the wildlife management areas. So what you do first, there's a whole tutorial. If you get on the site, there's a little video you can watch to learn how to download the iNaturalist and get dialed into the Florida nature trackers. But encourage people to go out and start. I've been doing it just in my yard. When I take a break while I'm working at home, I'll go out and visit my pollinator garden and start taking pictures. And then I have a backyards of Florida. I have my own backyard in there. Fish and Wildlife's we have a pilot project that's starting this year up in Leon County in Tallahassee, where we're based, where we're going to try to connect people with nature by, embracing smartphone technology, getting kids to look up and go outdoors and film what's in the yard, flip over some logs and rocks, document it, and then download it into their own backyard project. And then we're going to have a community nature challenge in April, which is based on the citywide challenge that happens in a big way. Miami has a huge outpouring in April, so we're gonna kind of pilot it up here in Leon County and then hopefully spread it throughout the state. We're partnering with University of Florida IFAS programs and others, so that'll be coming out in the next couple of years statewide. So we're pretty excited about that. So these are I mentioned that we have categories of species you can download your observations in, or you can go to these wildlife management areas and help us out. Here's one, Chazowitzka, over on the central west coast, that we had a bio blitz a year ago in the spring, and people keep coming back, and they've made 543 observations so far with 296 species. And this is really exciting because our biologists, who are always short staffed and time strapped, gives them a wonderful survey of what's actually out there, what's ranging, where it's at, and these when you take a photo, it will geo-reference when you add your observation, but if it's a listed species, it will mask it. So a poacher can't go there and steal that valuable plant or that rare endemic plant or species. So it gives it like a 10-kilometer range where it's roughly at, but it won't dial people right in. So this is something really cool to get excited about, and we're going to try to get kids engaged because you can't get their phones out of their hands now. So we're going to try to go to them and make it work. So I encourage y'all to try that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, as wildlife viewers, your own conscience is what really keeps you safe and keeps animals safe that you go up to observe. Because we actually, when we're out wanting to get that great photograph at dawn and you want to see that species and put it on your life list, the temptation is just to get closer and closer and closer, but it's not a good idea, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So there's 3 wildlife responses to disturbance. There's attraction, habituation, and avoidance. So feeding wildlife is an attraction behavior, which is a real big problem. Of course, feeding alligators, it's ridiculous. I mean, I think managers just kind of wring their hands up here in the refuge, and they can't get the tourists to quit feeding the gators marshmallows and cookies. They've had to like fence off certain areas just to keep the gators from, you know, being a problem, being a nuisance gator. So if you live in a neighborhood where there are, you know, where garbage is not secured, compost is not secured, it's an educational moment for your neighbors and for others if you see them feeding wildlife. Mostly to let them know, like I say, you really have good intentions. I know you want what's best for that animal, but you know, feeding them that food is really harming them. It's just not in their diet plan, and it's changing their natural behaviors, and they don't need it. So it really causes a lot of problems. To the point they could get citations if they're feeding dolphins and alligators. Okay. So habituation is if you know, animals get used to being constantly around humans, but that's not a good idea. Like these photo of the snorkelers crowding the manatee, they just kind of get used to people being around, so they lose their natural flight and fright response. And so instead of moving out of the harm of the way of a boat coming, they don't, and they get struck more often. And also, it's a problem for poaching because animals are used to people coming up and, you know, being friendly and being in their landscape, and then that can also be to their detriment. So avoidance is a behavior I mentioned about panic or escape response, but that causes a lot of changes that include resting, foraging, and nesting. And one big problem is particularly for shorebirds nesting, where they lay their shallow little clutches of eggs right on the ground, or even a raptor up in a nest, because if they leave their nest, there's a number of things can go wrong. They can flip an egg off, you know, they can break it. They lose their shade. There's incredible heat exposure that the adult was affording shade to the egg, or worse, another predator will swoop in and come in and get the egg. So it's real important not to make that a problem. So this is some of the things that happen. Like getting too close will cause abandonment of nests and reduce hatching and survival rates. So we just want to really always stay away from a mother and her young, because a lot of species that can be dangerous as well. So. And a few things thinking about birds is sometimes our disturbances don't seem that harmful, but it can be like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like if the birds are waiting along the beach and like every couple of minutes a dog runs after them or a person walks up and makes them move. It's very disrupting to them, and eventually they can just kind of abandon the area or abandon their nest because they've had too many disturbances. And also using your cell phones or recording devices to attract birds. A little bit's okay, but you know, you don't want to do pitching and have the big predator sounds coming in, and that again, that's all stress to the bird. So avoid doing that. And gotta keep your distance in so many ways. So manatees, you know, they can finally leave their warm water sites. Marine turtles have false crawling on nesting beaches. The shorebirds get flushed. The freshwaters dive. And all these things slowly can really pressure the animals. And we have around 1,000 people a day moving into the state, and we lose 350 acres of our habitat every day to development, which is a pretty chilling statistic. So our pockets of public conservation lands are becoming more and more pressured and becoming more and more of a refugium for so many species. So they have very few places to go where they're not disturbed. So when you're in that place, where they're in their home, in their refuge, I think it's very, very critical just to be on your game and educate others to that as well. So we do keep them in a sacred spot. Pets can be a real problem. Kind of amazed people will paddle with a dog, with gators and maybe sharks. But there's a lot of problems that go with that. If you're trying to see wildlife, definitely don't take a dog, because just the odor, even if it's a well-behaved dog on a leash, just the odor, it can be distracting to him. So it's best just to leave him at home. So there's a number, I talked about this, the FWC's website being a really good resource, in the Birding Trail website, and then of course the University of Florida's Master of Natural courses, which probably everybody on this audio has already done. But this is a tremendous way to get dialed into all the ecosystems and habitats and natural resources. So strongly recommend taking that program. Audubon's a tremendous resource. There's chapters all over the state. There's lots of volunteer opportunities with them. They're promoting citizen science projects. You can volunteer in the nature centers. You can be a docent. You can go out and monitor shorebird disturbance and kind of educate people as they're on the beach and try to protect. It's a very positive way to do public outreach and education. So it's a good thing to do. We have lots of volunteer programs at FWC. We encourage lots of citizen scientists. There's surveys and sightings, hotlines. The Ridge Rangers are really big, the Florida Shorebird Alliance. So we partner with others as well, like the Autumn in Florida's J-Watch program. So there's plenty of opportunities to get involved as volunteer. And it's also a great way to learn because you'll be out with other seasoned volunteers. You'll be working with biologists and land managers. And it's a really remarkable way to get an insider's look and behind the scenes on how wildlife management occurs. And I know John and Beth do some wonderful volunteer work down in their area around Naples. Great volunteers. So again, if you want specific information, go to our site, which is just going to be a whole lot better here in the next couple of weeks. And you can zoom in all these different specific species. And if you see problems, people, tour guide operators feeding wildlife, or people setting up feeding stations in your yard or problems like that, you can call into FWC to the dispatch operator, and the officers have a lot of skin in the game of educating people. They don't want to go out and do citations if they don't have to, so they always look for a teachable moment if someone's behavior could be improved. So think of the wildlife and try to be respectful when you're trying to change somebody's mind about how to behave around them. And if they just don't get it, you go ahead and call the law. And if there's repeated problems in one area, they will go ahead and do a detail. And I enjoy reading the law enforcement reports every 2 weeks. It's pretty amazing what these guys and gals do. It's very impressive. So that's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions or want to share anything?
Hey Liz, it's Erin. How are you?
Hey.
I wanted to share something about the North American Butterfly Association. You mentioned butterflies earlier. I've been doing the butterfly counts at Corkscrew under the direction of Sally Stein for, I don't know, forever. She does them twice a year, in July and in October. It's actually such an excellent way of seeing places where the general public doesn't go. She typically sends me in a pickup truck down the south end, which connects to Bird Rookery, and you get quite a hike in, and you get quite an education from people who really know their butterflies.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. That has actually led to me volunteering for last year. Edison Ford Estates here in Fort Myers launched their own butterfly count, and they're doing several different areas, and I am the leader in Lakes Park. So we're doing that on July 13th if anybody wants to join us.
That's great. Well, thanks for doing that, Erin. That's a tremendous opportunity. So I'm really glad you've done that and share your time and your talents. That's fabulous.
I think those butterfly counts happen all over the country. Mm-hmm. So anybody could go to the North American Butterfly Association and just contact us and find out where there's a survey near you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We've been
John, Beth, are you guys there?
We're here.
Hey, how are you?
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're tired.
You're tired. You been out
today? So.
Have you been out working, volunteering somewhere today?
Yeah, we started off trying to do turtles in the 10,000, but the boat wasn't shifting right, so we didn't.
We started out good, but a lot of mechanical problems, and so it ended pretty early.
Yeah.
It's an off season down here.
Yeah.
Well, y'all do wonderful work.
Did some trail work out at the crew, putting some trail markers in. 4x4 posts that carrying them about a quarter of a mile, and then digging a hole and putting them in. And 16 or 17 of them in a day kind of wore us out too.
Oh, I bet. And it's hot too. So,
yeah.
It must have been hot at the crew, that's for sure. Whew.
Yeah.
We definitely appreciate what y'all do.
We're doing big cypress coming up this year. We learned if you want to feed the swamp ape, he eats lima beans.
Oh, great.
They find them all over the preserve. People put them down.
Oh, that's funny.
Liz, I had a question. We do an Ecotour provider, the Estero Bay Buddies on the Estero Bay Aquatic Preserve does Ecotour provider education every year for the people, for the providers that are using the Estero Bay complex.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one of the presenters, in addition to us for marketing and a lot of other people, is the officer, the wildlife officer. And he stresses how there's just one of him. I mean,
Right.
maybe there's two, I don't know. But it's a huge area. I just wondered, knowing that there's the alert program and that, we want to, report violations, why is FWC so understaffed with officers?
Well, that would be a budget issue.
I mean, I know they have tons of biologists and doing all kinds of great research and monitoring, but my goodness, it's just seems crazy, right?
It is. I think 60, maybe almost 70% of our agency is biologists, research and biologists, and then the rest of that is a good percent of law enforcement, which surprises people. But it's always understaffed, and they've had more and more, staff reductions, more territory. They have to do both land and sea, so it's. But they're very conscientious. I think they go into it for the right reasons, and I really appreciate them. I'm trying to really admire them and enjoy working with them.
No doubt, they're wonderful. But I just feel like, my goodness. But
oh yeah, crazy.
We have some federal officers in our area, but their jurisdiction is adjacent. But anyway, it's just gosh.
Yeah. But it is important to go ahead and document it, call in what you see, because like I say, if there's repeated offenders, like some particularly in Ecotour operators acting wrong, they will go talk to them.
Yeah.
And they will set up covert operations and stuff if it's something bigger. So I'm surprised when I read these reports sometimes, resource inspections and then, following up and tracking people to their trailer they're poaching, and it's real exciting stuff. It's pretty amazing. And busting people in the dark, they're digging up archaeological resources, and it's interesting. It's pretty crazy. Well, do you want me to go ahead and turn the recording off, Nancy?
If you'd like. Well, I don't know if it turned. I think I turned it on, so I might have to turn it off. But before we do that, I just wanted to say thank you to Liz for volunteering to do this. She's had a rough week moving. Her office was uprooted, and we were struggling a half hour before this started because I'm working remotely and she's working.
So, yeah.
Anyway,
we pulled it off.
I appreciate it, and Liz, you've been a great champion throughout the state. I don't know. I know probably John and Beth, this. Liz was the architect of the Florida circumnavigational trail, especially the Big Bend portion, so we have, her and I are kinships because of my work here with the Blue Way. So we appreciate you, Liz, and I'm appreciative that you, even though you're not a part of Florida Sea anymore, you stepped up to help us tonight, and we were able to record it this time. So thank you.
Always glad to. Sure, I appreciate it, Nancy. I appreciate all that you do, and I have to give Doug Alderson the credit for doing the circumnavigation trail. I did parts of it, but he kicked it off to start with. So.
Well, I know you had a lot to do with Big Bend, right?
I did the Big Bend, and then I did some alternate routes in the Keys and also up in the Big Bend for the circumnavigation trail when I was over there.
That's huge compared to what I did.
Yeah.
Kudos. Well, we appreciate all of you for joining us.
Sure. Thanks, everybody.
We really do, and spread the word. The next webinar will be the second. Is this the second week? Third week. The second week of July. I think it's Rachel Rainbow from Crow, who's going to give our Ecotour providers tips on how to handle injured wildlife while they're out guiding. So that'll be a good one, and we look forward to having you guys again. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, I think I turned the recording off. Maybe not.